Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Brent. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm, of course, joined by the Tennessee, my cousin Shane. I screwed it up already. I'm joined by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
I threw you off a little bit there, didn't I? Throwing you that beer. Usually you don't see me, but hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man. I got pretty excited. I mean, you got to be an SEC nerd to get excited about media days, not even the event.
Mm-hmm.
The event's fun, but the release of the lineup we got for the upcoming media days, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about on this episode. So we'll get to that in just a second, brother, but how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing awesome. And it's funny because, you know, that came out, but at work, I just filled out like PTO time for a vacation, you know, and like the very next day I found out, and I'm running down there, and I'm like, well, briskly walking. And I said, I gotta have off July. Do you got those dates right offhand? Cause I don't want to screw those up in case anybody.
It starts Monday, July 17th, and it runs through Thursday, July 20th.
Okay, so I took off a few extra days because we got some big. We're not throwing it out there yet, but just know that we got some stuff in the works. We're gonna do some stuff the weekend before too. So we're really looking to get all SEC media here, and you know, because that's the kickoff. That's the kickoff to college football, Mike. That's when everybody starts getting excited. You know, they see some of their favorite players. The coach clips come out. Somebody says something dumb. You know, we get all fired up. But it is official kickoff to college football, and it's hard to believe because we just had it. It felt like we just had a national championship. But we're only 5 months away, and we're cranking this thing back up. So I think it's going to be awesome. First time ever in Nashville, right? Or in a long time.
No, first time ever in Nashville.
I think they're going to do it right. So it's going to be a fun event. So when we get a little bit closer to that time, we'll kind of fill you in some more details. But I'm looking forward to seeing some folks, man. I'd like to get down there, drink some cold beers with some fans, you know, answer some questions, you know, because there's some of you that's been around since day one. Some of you just now coming online, but you'll find out real quick. We like to have fun on this show.
Yeah, and a lot of people, Shane, from Texas and Oklahoma starting to filter down to the show. So, hey, we welcome you to all SEC fan bases, even the ones that are not officially yet in. I mean, they're in, but obviously won't start playing until 2024. Yeah. So we had an idea for this episode, Shane. One question that we want answered from each coach at SEC Media Days. And kind of the way I thought about going about this, Shane, is if I only had one question, and I knew I was going to get an honest answer from all 16, we're throwing Texas and Oklahoma. They're not going to be down there, but we're including them in something like this because they will be down there sooner rather than later. And then Cousin Shane's he'll have mine's meant to be more football related, serious, and Cousin Shane, your question's meant to be more at the bar stool if you could get them there.
That's right. We're maybe having a cold beer and we're just shooting the shit. And hey, by the way, I'm just curious, you know, something along those lines of questions, you know, because you're going to get a lot of that at SEC Media Days. You know, what's the quarterback situation? What do you think of these new coaches? Blah, blah, blah. But we've all got a couple of those questions sitting in the back of our mind. We're like, man, if he could honestly answer, I am curious, ABC. So that's kind of what I wanted to do here and just kind of have some fun. And it would be awesome if we could get some of these answered for sure.
Yeah. So let's just go in order, Shane, of the actual event. I thought that would kind of be the best way to do it. So again, starting Monday, July 17th, we got LSU, Missouri, and Texas A&M. And I'm going to start with Brian Kelly right off the docket here. My question to Brian Kelly, how confident is he that the special teams will come around? He's brought back Brian Polian. That's a guy that he has employed a long time, going back to his days at Notre Dame. And if you think back to last season, Shane, I mean, it started from the opener.
Yeah.
They got the PAT blocked by Florida State, cost them the game. I just
Mm-hmm.
went back and watched the LSU Tennessee game right out the gate. Tennessee, the kickoff, there was a fumble. Tennessee gets it. They get all the momentum, and they dominated that football game. And how can you forget the SEC championship? Georgia blocks a field goal.
Yeah.
LSU just walks off the field and acts like, well, I guess that's the end of the play. Well, Georgia's, they're smart enough to pick the ball up and return it for a touchdown. That was the end of the ball game. I mean, these are critical special teams mistakes. They're bringing back the special teams coordinator. I probably would have fired him, but again, I'm not an SEC coach making $100 million. So why has Brian Kelly got so much confidence in this guy that it's going to turn around? I think that's the biggest thing for LSU, Shane, because Alabama, of course, is going to be gunning for him. You can't have these miscues if you're going to unseat the Georgia Bulldogs and win a national championship, and that's the goal in Baton Rouge. And special teams gets overlooked sometimes, but that's probably the biggest weakness on LSU right now.
Brother, I mean, a lot of people didn't watch all of LSU's games, but that Florida State one really stuck out in my mind. We were on the national stage, and special teams was an absolute joke. Now, it turned out to be a hell of a game and came down to the wire, but that's a game. If special teams was fixed or correct or no flaws at all, they're easily winning the Florida State game. So his tenure started out rough, and it did improve at times, but then they take two steps back. So, yeah, I am curious on that one, because it is a lot of people don't. It's always about offense. That's what everybody wants to know. What about the quarterback? What about the wide receivers? But it's three phases, man. And if one of those is not, look at South Carolina, prime example. If it weren't for their special teams, they would have lost more games, in my opinion. So it is full three phases here. And the fact he has confidence, maybe they had a talk. I don't know. Maybe it's some of the returning players or something they saw toward the end of the season. But they're definitely going to have to get that corrected coming into this year.
So if you were at the bar down there in Nashville, Shane, you're drinking I think you got to be drinking a Guinness because it's Brian Kelly and his obvious connections to the old Fighting Irish. Down there, you're drinking a Guinness with Brian Kelly. What's the number one thing on the top of your mind you want to answer from the LSU head coach?
Well, if I could get him off the dance floor, Mike, I think the first thing I'd want to know. Well, it's kind of two-part, Mike. I ain't gonna lie. That whole booty thing at the end of the year got swept under the rug real quick. And I think, obviously, just as a fan outside looking in, I'd like to know what the hell happened there, like true details, But more importantly, Mike, I think one that's been lingering with me with Kelly for a long time is, he's in the SEC now, but his name has popped up several times in years past. And I'm just curious, what offers has he had? What other opportunities has he had to come in the SEC, and why did he turn those down? And did he have any regrets for turning those down? So I think if I'm asking Kelly any question, I can get a truthful answer. I just want to see what jobs he turned down.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, Shane, because who knows? I'm trying to think of some of the ones he's been attached to. I think Auburn maybe, and I'm sure several others during his full tenure, but
I've done a couple things, mock-ups on Tennessee, I was like, so I tried to get Kelly to Knoxville once. So I am, there's been opportunities here, and I'm wondering if he was holding out for a sweet job like LSU or in Alabama or Georgia or something like that, or was it more like, hey, I missed the boat here. Clearly, I can't get this done in Notre Dame, and as soon as a reasonable job popped open, which LSU's more than capable of winning national championships, did he jump on it immediately, or was he actively looking like, hey, dude, something comes open, I want in the SEC? So I'm just to kind of get his perspective on that. I think that would be a really cool question to ask.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Shane. LSU's proven you can win the national championship down there. They got all the pieces to get that done. So I have to imagine that was the key factor in his decision. So also Monday, July 17th, Missouri, Eli Drinkwitz will be down there. Hopefully we get him back on camera. I know Cousin Shane was his favorite media member after last year, our little exchange there. So hopefully get him back on the show. But let me ask you, here's the question I got for Coach Drink if we get him back on, Shane. Bringing in an offensive coordinator. First time in his head coaching career, he's hired an offensive coordinator to be a play caller. Kirby Moore from Fresno State. How long of a leash will this guy have in the play calling? Because, hey, in the offseason, we all know it. We're going to win every game. This is going to be the greatest season yet. But you hit some adversity. Maybe there's a game where you fail to score 20 points. Does Drink pull that out from under him? I don't know. I'd love to get, insight into that. And how much leeway does he have on picking the quarterback? Because I think that is going to be huge for Missouri now that we've got the Miami transfer, Jake Garcia in there. We got Brady Cook back, and we got Sam Horn as a redshirt freshman. We got options. And the success of Missouri is, it's never as simple as this, but it feels like if they don't pick the right quarterback, they ain't having a good season. If they pick the right one, if they develop the right one, man, I think Missouri could be the dark horse of the SEC. Yeah,
I'm with you here, Mike, and I guess when you're looking at kind of leads into my question here is, and first off, Eli taking time at media days was awesome. He was the first SEC coach to give us a shot, so I appreciate that. And really a down to earth guy. If you get a chance to talk to him, now there's a lot of folks that hate him. Absolutely hate him, but he speaks his mind, and I think I respect that because there's a lot of coaches that will just give you the same old coach speak, and he doesn't do that. So he'll put it out on the line. But I am curious, brother. There's a couple hot seats coming into this season, and I think Mizzou's going to be one of them. And I think it's going to hinge on quarterback, and that's the easy way out. But obviously, it hurt them last season. This season, I am curious. He was very aggressive. I'm wondering in his mind, how does he think that quarterback room's going to play out? And if it goes well, what's the threshold? How many wins does he need to kind of get the pressure off of him? So I just think with these other teams coming into the conference and expanding, I think Missouri's schedule is going to get a little bit harder moving forward when we switch up these groups. So I'm just curious if this is the time to put up or shut up and kind of his, what is he seeing back home?
Right. No, I mean, that's a good one, Shane. And you make an interesting point. How will this, we'll know in the coming weeks how the new scheduling format, but, we'll have to do, I'm sure we'll do all kinds of reaction. Who's the biggest winners, biggest losers, and their path to the SEC championship. They're obviously, you got the beast of the SEC in the East in Georgia, but hell, I mean, Missouri's road would be a hell of a lot tougher, at least on paper, if they were in the West. So this may be a small window to take advantage. I mean, in case things go completely haywire in Athens, which we don't anticipate, but you just never know.
Well, and the way their schedule's played out, we get 4 or 5 games into this thing, or even when we're doing best case scenarios, we convince ourselves of an easy road to 6 wins and getting into a bowl game. You're not going to be able to do that moving forward when you're playing teams like, name it, Alabama every other year, LSU every other year. I mean, the teams are going to get a lot tougher now, and potentially 9 of them as opposed to 8. So, I think this is a good year for him, and if he can secure a long-term deal with Mizzou at the end of this thing after but it's all going to boil down to quarterback play. They've got I think one of the best defense. They got a lot of people coming back. They've got a wide receiver room that's top shelf, and I think honestly, if the right quarterback comes in and does his thing, then we're talking about maybe an extension up there in Mizzou. So that's what I'm going to ask him if he was going to be honest with me.
Now the final coach on the first day, of course, Jimbo Fisher down there. A lot of questions with the Aggies. They got all the talent in the world. They need to start competing for. Again, we did it the other day. They've never won the West. Maybe that's not fair to throw on them because they've not been in the conference near as long as others. But this will be the final opportunity for them to win a division title before the formats change. My question for Jimbo, Shane, we had 2 new coaches last season, and I think you can make the case both of them failed to do the job that is expected in College Station. I'm talking defensive coordinator DJ Durkin. Our defense was dead last in the SEC in rush defense. And then our offensive line coach, Steve Adazio, who he's been all across college football. He was down there with Urban Meyer at Florida. And if you go to his bio on the Texas A&M page, they're saying, well, this guy's won multiple national championships. If that's on your bio, and that was damn near over a decade ago, and it was because Urban Meyer and Dan Mullen and Tim Tebow, I don't know that you've really accomplished a ton. I want to know the confidence that those two coaches can get their units fixed, because we got too much talent at Texas A&M to be dead last in rush defense. I know there was injuries and all this. We got too much talent on the offensive line to struggle to run the ball, couldn't protect a quarterback to save their life for much of the season. I mean, these guys need to have their damn feet to the fire if they struggle once again. I can see both those guys getting let go.
Yeah, man. I mean, at times, you would think a team like that, as loaded as they are, talent top to bottom, that there would be a couple of areas that just really shined. And you know, we talk about being the 12th man. I see the flag here beside you, but sometimes it felt like one man, and it was the Ache. You know, it's like, if he can't get this done, we're not going to win. And that's not what you expect to hear this far into the tenure down there at Texas A&M. So I'm with you, brother. Obviously, a lot of pressure down there, and you know, the excuses are over, brother. And I guess if I'm asking him a question, it's going to be along the same lines. You know, if Bjork, I would want to know this AD situation. I'd want to know the OC situation. Jimbo hiring an offensive coordinator I don't think was his decision. And I would want to know, how did that play out? Was this something that you got in the office and they said, hey, if you want to keep your damn job, you're going to have to bring somebody in. If they're reading the tea leaves and they said, we need an OC, and not a mouthpiece, we need somebody that can help you run this offense, because, you know, SEC is as close as you can get to NFL. And you see this with general managers all the time, forcing these coaches to make hires and things like that. So I'm just curious, if I'm talking to Jimbo and he's being honest with me, you know, how much of this OC situation was his idea? And now that he's down there, how much control does he expect to honestly have in that offense? Because I think he needs to really loosen the reins down there and be more of a general manager himself if this team's going to be productive. And A&M has invested so much in college football, man. And I mean, everybody knew at some point Texas was probably going to come over here. A&M did too. They got a head start on this thing, man. They upgraded facilities. They've put all this money into their coaching and recruiting, and this thing is an well-oiled machine, and it's just sputtering. It's not getting out of go, and they're not going to mess around. This is it, man. With Texas, Oklahoma coming in, if Jimbo doesn't get it done, dude, you want to talk about the quickest coach getting fired. And there's no reason he should, because the team is absolutely loaded with talent.
Yeah, and there's a really interesting article, Shane, that was recently in The Athletic. They were talking about NIL and how the main booster, you know, I think it's called like the 12th Man Foundation or something. They've been down there as long as they've had football down there. They have now incorporated that into the NIL, and just an interesting nugget in there. It said they raised $96 million just last year for the football program, and they, you know, I'm sure that's for facilities and yada yada yada. If they can raise $96 million in a year, they can buy his ass out. If they have to, you know, maybe that's what that was for, saying, hey, if we need it, maybe we can push him out. I don't know, but I'm just speculating on that. But just the fact, that gives you an indication how much money's down there. And you talk about Bobby Petrino, the offensive coordinator. I know the jokes have been made that you know, he would be the perfect interim coach when they got to fire Jimbo. I'm not going that far. I'm not saying that they are going to fire Jimbo, but just imagine. And I know this is not what A&M fans want to hear, but if they struggle maybe at midseason they're, I don't know, 3-3 or something like that, and they
Yeah.
get blown out. Maybe they do fire Jimbo. And I bet you in Bobby Petrino's mind, in the back of there, at some point, he's like, well, if the offense works and I get this interim role and I go 6-0, like a Coach O or something,
Yeah.
that's my ticket to being the head coach at Texas A&M in 2024. And I think, hell, you'd almost have to give him the job if he did a really, really good job as the interim coach. So I'm not saying that'll happen for A&M fans. They certainly don't want that to happen, but that kind of goes to your point. I mean, it's an interesting marriage, to say the least, down there. You know what?
Well, and I think that kind of adds to it. That there was some outside influences when we got these boosters. I mean, you think about that, $96 million. That's a lot of damn money, Mike. I mean, you lay that on a table, you bring Jimbo in and say, hey, listen, we can buy you out right now, or you bring in a guy and here's a list. It wouldn't even surprise me if there was a short list of names. This is who we want, because we're paying. You're paying the money. When you're spending $100 million, you're gonna have some pull up there. So I'm not saying that's what happened or anything like that, but if Jimbo's being honest with me, he could tell me about some of those closed door meetings they had.
All right, jumping to Tuesday, July 18th, day 2 of SEC Media Days. First time back in a while, Shay. Last time he was at Media Days, he was in a scandal, and they had to let him go. But he's back, new school, second chance, Hugh Freeze, down there at Auburn. I mean, I think it's a little too easy to say, what are you going to do at quarterback? Well, we may even know by then. So, Robbie Ashford, can he be a big-time winning quarterback in the SEC? That's kind of the obvious question. So I'll go a little bit different, Shane, and say, if you just look at Auburn last season and really in the last couple of seasons, they failed to be competitive at times against Georgia and Alabama, of course. They got blown out at home against Penn State 41-12. Georgia beat them 42-10. Of course, Georgia beat the hell out of everybody, so I can't hold that against them too much. Alabama killed them, and Ole Miss and Arkansas really kind of had their way with them. My question to Hugh is, how confident are you that, we may get blown out once or twice, while you're building this thing up, but how confident are you that can you close that gap and make these games competitive, push Georgia to a fourth quarter, push Alabama to the fourth quarter? You've got talent. You've assembled a great coaching staff. What's your confidence level that you can close that gap and make these things competitive? Because if I'm an Auburn fan, that's what I really want to see. I want to win 7, 8, 9 games and stop getting blown out, go into year 2 with a ton of momentum, and try to win us 10 or 11 games in year 2. What's your confidence level that can happen? That's what I want to be asking Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, and I think expectations on head coaches have changed. You look, we talked about Kelly in day 1. Look what he did, man. He took them to an SEC championship year 1. Look at Beamer up there, it's year 2, but he's beating Tennessee and Clemson, So I think the build a program days are behind us. This is, you got to start winning and being productive immediately. So I'm with you here, especially at Auburn. And, if I'm talking to you, I don't even know if we're allowed in a bar, but if we are, I'm going to ask him, hey, brother, you're kind of a success story. I mean, think about that. When all this news broke originally, I never thought he would coach college football again, let alone an SEC program. So I would probably ask him when he got the phone call at the official offer that he was going to be able to coach in the SEC again. I would probably want to know the first 3 people he called, his emotion, how he felt. I mean, just his gut. I mean, because you seriously burnt a shit ton of bridges on your way out, man. And now you got to come back. I honestly think in a better situation. Nothing against Ole Miss, but you can win national championships sooner in Auburn, in my opinion. And I just think that he came out smelling like a rose. So I'm not saying Disney's going to pick up the movie or anything, but maybe Skinamax or something,
Yeah, I mean, they just opened a brand new facility. It's some of the nicest facilities in the country. Everybody knows that's a hell of a dangerous place to go down there and play. Man, remember those fans, how they were when Cadillac took
Oh, yeah.
over, and that place was rocking for Mississippi State, for
Yeah.
Texas A&M. I mean, those fans are incredible. You're right. I mean,
Yeah.
he should be thanking his lucky stars that he is head coach
Yeah.
at Auburn, because everything that he aspires to, you can accomplish it down there on the plains.
This is it, man. This is the last shot, but just the fact he has that opportunity still blows my mind. So run with it, man. Run with it, my friend.
All right, so Georgia, Kirby Smart, they'll also be there Tuesday. Not a lot of big time questions for Kirby. You're going for number 3 in a row. That's just incredible. But if I were to ask Kirby, and he's going to be honest with me, what will Georgia miss most next season? I think there's 3 key points here, and this is starting to add up a little bit here, Shane. Who are you going to miss more? The offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, who you replace with Mike Bobo, of course. You're starting quarterback, of course, Stetson Bennett, Heisman finalist, and who knows who the next guy will be. Or will you miss both your starting offensive tackles? I know they've got some guys in there with experience, so it's not like they're whoever they slide in there is going to be a former 5-star. So I sit here feeling bad for Georgia, but I'm just curious, which one does he think Georgia will miss more? Because those are some key pieces on that offensive side: offensive coordinator, quarterback, or offensive tackle. And you miss on just one of those roles.
Yeah.
Maybe Georgia doesn't win the national championship. Maybe they don't even win the SEC if they completely whiff on one of those. You know what?
So what do you I mean, so when you're boiling it down, are you more concerned about a certain coach, or are you a certain player? I mean, what do you think if you're talking to Kirby and he's shooting you straight here, what do you think his biggest concern should be?
Honestly, probably quarterback,
Yeah.
because I was among the many that doubted him time after time. But when the moment came up big, Stetson was making the critical play time and time again the last 2 seasons. And how many times have we seen it, Shane, where some touted guy comes into Alabama or Georgia or LSU, and it's just next man up, we're going to be fine. Hell, I mean, there was guys, I think his name was John Brantley, was higher rated than Tim Tebow. Urban said, this is the best quarterback we've ever had. I mean, he couldn't play a lick. You know what I mean? So we always assume that it's just going to the good times are going to keep on rolling. And every quarterback Georgia's got is higher, was recruited at a higher level than Stetson, but maybe they won't have that chip on their shoulder. Maybe they won't have something to prove. And, Stetson, he may be the best quarterback Georgia ever gets, as crazy as that is to say, but it's kind of hard to knock him for, all that he's accomplished. He probably is the best quarterback they've ever had.
Yeah, no. I guess, on that note, I would be also curious coaches that he's turned down, because I'm sure there's been a few come out of the woodworks that's wanted an opportunity, either a GM, because, Kirby's a very prideful person, man. Not that other coaches aren't, but he's very emotional. And I would imagine you burn a bridge with Kirby, you ain't coming back. So I am kind of curious if there are some of those kind of lingering around that now that things are great in Athens, he doesn't want them to be part of the staff. Maybe some people that had an opportunity to come over early, and again, now that they're winning national championships, he's moved on. So, and on that note, just as successful as they are, I just want to know, man, Kirby, you're not paid the most in the entire country, but you've won back-to-back national championships, and not only wins, you just freaking destroyed a team. Everybody knows what you're building down there. Are you a little upset that you're not the highest paid man, and that when we talk about good coaches, people first thing they mention is still Nick Saban? I'm sure he's very respectful of Saban, but it's like, it's like your dad and son thing, and at some point you're like, okay, Dad, it's my turn, and it feels like the reins have been handed over, but maybe he's not getting the respect financially that he deserves. So I know it's a stupid, trivial question, but, at that level, when you're on top of the mountain, there's only a few things you could do. And I'm wondering if Kirby's saying, you know what? I'm looking at his phone like, how much is Dabo getting paid? You know, I should be getting more than Dabo. You know.
All right, how about first time at Media Day, Shane? Zach Arnett, new Mississippi State head coach, of course. What I really want to know, he's been in the building for several years. He gets elevated to the head coaching job, and it's basically a clean sweep of the offensive coaching staff. I really want to know, thoughts behind that. Why did he feel that, we needed to change? Not only, obviously, you had to change the play caller because it was Mike Leach, but we bring in a new receivers coach, Chad Bumpus, brought in 2 offensive line coaches, Will Friend and Mike Schmidt. Schmidt's going to coach the tackles and the tight ends. I'm kind of curious to know where we're going on that side of the ball, and kind of in addition to that question, which I think is kind of indicative of what they may be doing. What was the thought process with bringing in Mike Wright from Vanderbilt? Because he is just the exact opposite of Will Rogers. So it doesn't make sense if they're going to be running the same thing, and clearly they're not. With a new staff and a dual threat quarterback, what's the plan for Mike Wright? I think Mississippi State's offense is going to look a lot different than what it did under Mike Leach, and that's just kind of fascinates me.
Yeah, the thing about Mike Wright is, he stuck with it in Vandy, even when he lost the job. So I would imagine he wasn't just looking for any opportunity. He's looking for an opportunity to be a starter or a playmaker. So, yeah, I would be really curious about that. What was the point of that? Are they trying to make some sort of change on that side of the ball? Because Mike is very athletic and an exciting runner for sure. Obviously, got to work on his passing game, but hell of a leader, man. He had that locker room at Vandy going, so I think it was a good get. And I like your questions, because the first thing I would want to know, and selfish reasons, he was the last one to coach with the Pirates, so I wouldn't mind asking a few questions about the last season, some things that he took from the Leach, funny stories, that sort of thing, because I look at that book there on your table, and it's, it sucks that we're not going to have him this year. But so obviously that, but Arnett, you talk about a big shadow, brother. He's got an uphill battle, obviously, and I think he was a good hire. I think he was a good fit. He's got to prove himself. I don't think he wants to be the guy that was an easy replacement. But because there's no easy replacement for Coach Leach, and but the fact that he was able to keep a lot of this staff that he wanted, and the players that, I mean, they were vulturing, man. You saw the stories coming out. People were coming after these kids. I think that part was impressive to me. That's the sign of a good head coach, in my opinion. You had that locker room over. So what does he take from Mike? What? Maybe it's not play calling or anything like that. Maybe it's just, some sort of, I don't know, recruiting tactic or something that he just picked up, because the Pirates had so many people under him over the years, and they talk about picking his brain and stealing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. What is he going to take from the Pirate moving forward? And how quick does he plan on turning this thing around and showing the country that he is a legit head coach, because he is a hell of a defensive mind.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a great defensive mind, Shane, Vanderbilt, they're going to be the last ones on Tuesday. Clark Lee, my question for him, what's his confidence that the defense is going to start to improve? Because, man, they were pretty bad last year, dead last in scoring defense, dead last in sacks. I realize, he walked into a incredibly difficult situation, and he should be commended for the strides they made last year, but he came in as a defensive guru from Notre Dame that was up for the assistant coach of the year for his Notre Dame defenses. Are we going to see that this year? Because that's a missing piece of the puzzle to make Vanderbilt a little bit more competent. They're adding depth, obviously being recruiting. Is this the year we start to see the defense turn around? Because if they start playing up to the offense's caliber, they're going to be a lot more competitive in SEC play.
Yeah, and Vandy was a fun story last year, man. I mean, I think I would be curious if I'm talking to him, which win was bigger for him, beating Florida at home or, Kentucky on the road. I thought they were both very emotional games. He was emotional after the fact. Here's a team that was expected to win 0 SEC games, and they did 2, which is a huge leap, in my opinion, with what they're building up there in Nashville. So I would want to first ask him how much he's getting paid because, as you all know, they don't disclose that. I just want to see how shitty Vandy's athletic department is treating the coach here because he needs a raise. I guarantee it. But if I'm honestly, I don't know. I thought of a couple. One was Ray Davis. I wanted to know, was there any heated arguments trying to keep him? Because I think he was such a great piece of that offense last year, and the fact he was unable to attend the school because of rules, it kind of blows my mind, especially as many rules as we bend for some of these other kids to get playing time in the other teams, you know what I'm saying? So God forbid this kid gets an extra year at Vanderbilt. So I would be curious the backstory of that and if there was any chance of keeping him, but the school again not taking football seriously.
Yeah. All right, so we're switching over to Wednesday, July 19th. This is going to be a big one, Shane. It's big anytime Nick Saban and Alabama's at SEC Media Days. I think the obvious question for the GOAT, what is the impact of changing over both your coordinators? Fans have been desperate. They think this is going to restart the dynasty here. We got rid of Pete Golding. In comes Kevin Steele. We got rid of Bill O'Brien. In comes Tommy Reese. Who the hell is that? I mean, I imagine the defense is going to basically remain the same. This is, I think, the third time Kevin Steele's been down there as his defensive coordinator, or at least an assistant under Nick Saban. So they know each other. It's going to be familiar. But I'm really curious about that offense. I think they're going to get away from, throwing it all over the yard, explosive plays, ground and pound. I think they want to be more like Georgia, Shane, which is pretty wild to hear. But I would be very interested to hear Saban's explanation on hiring Tommy Reese and on what his vision is for this offense, because I think it's going to determine how successful Alabama is next season.
Well, and it's always funny when you watch Saban, if he does have an off year, it seems like he makes a change toward who's having a productive year. You joked about Georgia. That clearly was working. So expect a change to go closer toward that, So now that's not my question. I mean, if I'm sitting at the bar, I'd probably be fanboyed up, talking. I wouldn't even be able to say words like the pod here. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to clean this up because I'd be like stumbling all over the place. But I got to ask, when the hell are you retiring, Nick? Come on, man. Is there a date and set? Or are you just going to keep going? I think he's got an ultimate goal. Maybe it's national championship rings or something like that. But it feels like there is a goal. And if they won a national championship last year, would he have quit that year? So I don't think so. But I don't know. It's lingering. Miss Terry's brought it up several times. So there's had to be that conversation. That, and I'd like to know how fast he got that Ferrari. Has he got that thing over 45 yet? Because, is he hitting that skinny pedal when nobody's looking? How many tickets has he avoided down there in Tuscaloosa? So,
well, I'll tell you, Shane, I've come full circle on the Nick Saban retirement. I've not even brought it up because I don't want him to retire now. Now that, LSU is I don't want to say on their level, but hell, they beat them last year. They won the division. But more importantly, Georgia, I mean, we just assume Georgia's going to go 12-0, go to the SEC championship, and they may do it. But it's basically the same thing as what I was saying when Alabama was dominant. I think it's bad when you go into the year and it's just, Alabama's just going to kill everybody. I think it's bad if it's Georgia's just going to kill everybody. So, I mean, we need King Kong and Godzilla to be at full strength. So as long as Georgia's humming, I'd like to see Alabama humming as well, so that at least we can get some Titanic clashes here. You know what?
Well, not to mention he's a great ambassador for the game. And any event that you go to, it's nice knowing that he's in our corner. He's always got the interest of the SEC first, and his voice it carries a lot of weight. So I like that side. I get your point. I want to play a little devil's advocate here with you, Mike. Though, if Alabama were to miss the college football playoffs yet again, does that tarnish any reputation? I know that's a stupid question because of everything that he's done, but a lot of times people remember what you did toward the end. Steve Spurrier is an example, just fleeting in the middle of the night. I think that tarnished a little bit of his legacy. Do you think him missing, or maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like the Alabama not as dominant as it's been in the past and starts getting closer to the pack. Does that tarnish anything that Saban's done?
No, it won't tarnish anything he's done, but I think what it will do was, and something I've been saying for a while, it'll say to the nation, it'll confirm that he's no longer on top of his game, and he's no longer the best head coach, even in the SEC, because Kirby Smart, I think, has probably surpassed him. So that will confirm it, because especially if Georgia wins 3. I mean, if Kirby Smart wins 3 in a row, he's done something Nick Saban never did, and he did it in a quicker time span. I mean, boy, I'd hate to see, Alabama fans will melt down if that happens. You know what?
Absolutely. I'd like to know, too, does he hate David Pollock, or has he forgave him for not recognizing he's sitting there at the booth?
All right. Also on Wednesday show, we got the great Sam Pittman. He's always great at SEC Media Days. But what I really want to ask Coach Pittman, Shane, have we fixed the red zone issues with dumping Kendall Browse for Dan Enos and kind of going hand in hand with that? This offensive line, they weren't bad by any means. I mean, my God, Arkansas finished, I believe, number 2 in the SEC in rushing. So they were a strength, but also number 11 in sacks allowed, number 10 in tackles for loss allowed. This was not what I thought we were getting with, I always thought Arkansas's offensive line would be the best of the best, or near it in the SEC. And I think they were downright average. I mean, they struggled on third down, struggled in the red zone. Has that been resolved? Despite losing Ricky Stromberg and Dalton Wagner to the NFL? Those are the big questions I have for Sam Pittman, because we have got to execute in the red zone, and the offensive line has got to be a strength while Sam Pittman is a coach there, if Arkansas is going to win big in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line. I mean, when Sam first took that job, that's what you and I said. Well, at least we know they have a hell of an offensive line, and sometimes it feels like that strength was not there, and that kind of infuriates me, because Sam Pittman is one of the GOATs when it comes to offensive line coaching and developing. So I definitely want to see some improvement on that side of the ball. And you do that, it helps in red zone situations. It helps in stupid penalties on first down. There was a lot of that I think could be cleaned up. So I sometimes when you're a head coach, you kind of you go back to that general manager, but you forget what you're really good at. And I think he gets back to his roots here in the offseason. And as far as me and Sam hanging out the bar, you want to talk about an ultimate dream. I would love that. I would love to drink beer. No, like if we had a list of the SEC coaches I'd like to drink a cold beer with, Sam Pittman's going to be at the top of that thing. I just think he'd be awesome, and I think I'd be more interested in just stories. Here's a guy that's been around the block a time or two. He's seen a lot of great coaches. He's seen a lot of great players. I would want to know kind of behind the scenes some stories that he's not able to tell us, because he's always got one right there, like a short list of things he's brought up. But he's also got a list of things he just can't let get out. So if I'm asking him, I'm probably going to ask the wildest recruiting story. What's the wildest thing you've seen in a locker room? Something along those lines there, because I bet he'd have us rolling.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we also got Billy Napier down there on Wednesday, Shane, and it's simple for me, for Billy. confidence level that Patrick Toney, the defensive coordinator, can get things going, because that far too often last year, Florida was dreadful on defense,
Mm-hmm.
and man, it cost you in damn near every big game you played. When I think of Florida, Shane, I always think of tough, physical defense. Defense usually leads the way down there, at
Mm-hmm.
least in recent times. I know, you go back to Steve Spurrier. I mean, even at high flying, incredible offenses they had, they also had nasty, nasty defenses. That's why they were so damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, are you going to fire your defensive coordinator if he doesn't get it done this year? Because it was just pathetic last year.
No, and I think that's a fair question to ask, Mike. And there are a lot of question marks for me with the University of Florida. Except, we were talking about these two teams, Texas and Oklahoma, joining, and sometimes, the more mouths to feed, some of these teams don't get the respect that they deserve, and it just seems like the more years we go on, the more prestige I feel like Florida is losing. We got a little taste of it a few years back with Pitts and company, but it feels like we've just not got back to quality football, Gator football. I mean, you're the only SEC team in the state. We got two in Alabama, two in Tennessee, now two in Texas, hell, two in Mississippi. There's only one team in Florida, and you own it. You need to capitalize on that, and it drives me nuts. And I guess if I'm talking to Billy, I want to know, what's the pressure? What is the, like? Do you see yourself coaching here in 4 years? Like, I look at what they've had the last few seasons, 3-4 years, that's it, and you're out. Is this thing going to be, are we going to be competitive again in year 3? Or are you going to be another revolving coach that comes through Gainesville? It just feels like we've not had that home run hire since Urban Meyer, and everybody's chasing Spurrier. It's like we've not done the big name thing. We went out and got Dan Mullen. He was a hot commodity, but he wasn't a flashy name like Kelly that would come in and win national championship. He's winning a lot of games in Mississippi, but it just, are they saving up for that guy, or do they think Billy will be that guy? And only Billy can tell you. So I would want to know, what are your expectations, and what is the expectations of your athletic department?
Yeah. And maybe a fun question that you could have asked him also, Shane. Winning the Utah game, was that the worst thing that happened to you? Because that just set the, remember, I think they went from like unranked to top 10. Everybody was like, we're back, baby, we're back. Then they lose to Kentucky. It's like, oh God, like here we go again. So it's almost like that set the expectations too high in his debut season. You know what?
Yeah, if he could redo it, maybe just lose by 1, Well, and I'm sure it was not easy. We had some players get dismissed halfway through the season. Another good question would be, what was that locker room like? Especially with Anthony Richardson, and I'm sure there was a couple divas in that locker room, and it's tough when you're the new coach and you're trying to, do a new thing. Some guys just don't buy in, and it felt like that's what the problem we had with Florida was, is there wasn't 100% buy-in when Billy got down there. So what does that look like year 2? Is the locker room situation cleared up? Are these your guys?
Right. And it makes you think, this is the last thing Florida fans want to hear about, but the Jaden Rashada, the quarterback, all the money.
Yeah.
Billy Napier was probably like, the last thing we need is a multi-million-dollar player in here that has literally accomplished nothing. I don't know if the locker room could survive that,
No, it couldn't. Absolutely. I feel like that's kind of cancer, man. Especially at a young program. It's one thing if you're going to Georgia or Alabama, and these guys are winning all the time, but you're trying to build something. It's tough when you've got a diva. I would imagine, like, I'm not saying that he is. I don't know the kid or anything like that, but when you're holding out for more money and stuff like that, you got a room full of other kids that aren't getting paid near as much, or if any. So yeah, I'm with you on there.
All right, last one for Wednesday, Shane. We got Mark Stoops in Kentucky, And of course, everyone's excited. We got Liam Cohen back as the offensive coordinator. Got Devin Leary from NC State, who many had as the top quarterback in the portal. Ray Davis, you already mentioned him, a hell of a running back from Vanderbilt. So we've got all these pieces, but and we've added on the offensive line, but that's where my focus is, the offensive line, because I got confidence in the other pieces they added. I've got confidence in Kentucky's receivers and tight ends. All the pieces are there aside from the offensive line. And maybe they'll have it solved, but that's the big question I got from Mark Stoops. Your program's identity used to be the offensive line. That's the strength of the entire program. Now it may be the biggest weakness of the offense. What's your confidence that that has been turned around? Because I think the season kind of hinges on it for the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, Kentucky's so wild, man. Just when you want to count them out, you don't want to, like, okay, it's over. It was a fun run. They go out and they land all these damn transfers. Like, they're back, So they weren't doing that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Kentucky had to build and build and build from the ground up. Not anymore. So I think that's a testament of what Mark's been able to do up there. But if I'm asking Mark anything, brother, I want to know which coach he would punch in the face and why is it Shane Beamer? He's got he's got that chip on his shoulder. That's who he is. And it's a shame that these guys aren't on the same day, because I think if I was scheduling, that's the way I would have. But it is kind of fun watching these guys, and Kentucky especially. Just the hatred they have for some of these teams you never thought about. Like, I never thought of a Kentucky-South Carolina rivalry. Well, now I can't wait to see the game. I know it's going to be chippy. I know there's going to be words being said. Same thing with Tennessee. Tennessee has always hated people in other schools, but it feels like Kentucky's slowly morphing in to another Tennessee, just a list of enemies. And Shane Beamer and them damn glasses are at the top of his.
Just a second. Final day at SEC Media Day, Shane, Thursday, July 20. This looks like an electric day. Sometimes the final day is kind of a sleepy one. It ain't going to be at this Media Days, because we got Lane Kiffin, who always is down there dropping one gem after another. Question for Lane Kiffin I got, Shane. What the hell is the strategy here with all these quarterbacks, Spencer Sanders, Walker Howard from LSU, and we still got Jackson Dart coming back, and he looked good at times. I mean, it's not like he was awful. So, what is the strategy there? And Kiffin has, he's made it no secret before that, this transfer portal, I don't know how it affects the locker room, and it could blow the chemistry up. And these are things he said, yet he's adding all these quarterbacks and just hoping it all works out. I'm fascinated to know what is the true strategy and what he really thinks of Jackson Dart, given the fact that he's gone out here and added two quarterbacks that could potentially start for Ole Miss next season.
Yeah, and this one's going to be a fun one, because it's one that we're really going to dissect a lot of here in the offseason is the coaching of Ole Miss. What does this team look like? Because there is a lot of question marks there. But if I'm in a room or a bar with Lane Kiffin, the last thing I'm going to talk to him about is X's and O's. You know what I'm saying? The first thing I probably would mention, obviously, as a Tennessee homer, was that night and how it played out, and does he have regrets? Those stupid drunk questions are going to come out as a Tennessee homer. But the one that kind of puzzles me is this Auburn deal. Usually when there's smoke, there's fire, and this thing felt like it was a done deal. And it feels like something may have fell through there. And then there was a lot of, there was a contract coming out immediately after that, an extension. I would want to know commitment level. 5 years from now, Lane, do you see yourself still at Ole Miss? I mean, I know you did an extended contract, but we just discussed that with Jimbo. Money's not – I mean, we got some serious Disney money coming in. That contract can get paid for. I want to know true commitment at Ole Miss, how he's going to be, and how close he was to going to Auburn. And if there was a job to pop open in the SEC, is there any and a list. Just give me a short list of 4 places that you would leave Ole Miss for. And hopefully, as an Ole Miss fan, he'll say none of them, like if he's giving me an honest answer. But I don't think he's going to give us an honest answer.
All right, how about we just referenced him, Shane. Shane Beamer will also be there on Thursday.
Yeah.
He's always a great time. He takes advantage. He's one of the smartest coaches when it comes to marketing and getting the brand out there and everything. We all know the glasses and the hype videos. I mean, the TikToks will be insane from Broadway and Shane Beamer. But what I really want to know, because I think it's going to determine the season for the Gamecocks next season, Spencer Rattler playing for offensive coordinator Dow Loggins. How effective can their quarterback be right out the gate in this new system? They got many pieces returning for continuity. That's great. But we've seen many times before, Shane, where we make a change at a coordinator, and every change at coordinator you assume is going to be good, but they don't always work out that way.
Right.
And they certainly don't always work out immediately. But look at South Carolina's schedule right out the gate, Shane. I mean, they got North Carolina in Charlotte, so it's a neutral field. Week 3 at Georgia. Week 4, Mississippi State comes to Columbia. That is not a game you can overlook. And then at Tennessee. So, I mean, you have got to be firing right out the gate. Otherwise, I mean, we're hyping up South Carolina. We believe in South Carolina. We think they're a program on the rise.
Yeah.
There have been many programs, Shane, that were quote unquote on the rise in the SEC, and that thing went downhill in a hurry. And I'm not suggesting that the entire program will implode if they struggle, but they're not going to have a great season if they don't come out the gate firing, because these are some very, very difficult games right out the gate.
Yeah, and to that note, I guess that kind of leads in a little bit what I was thinking. You know, I was going back to that Florida game last year, and it felt like South Carolina completely hit rock bottom there. And if you would have asked me that day if they ever win an SEC game the rest of that season, I would easily have put a mortgage payment and saying, absolutely not. These guys are done. They were finished. But something happened, brother. Something happened in that locker room. Some people probably bought in. I know there were some folks leave. You know, I would want to know if I'm talking to Beamer behind the scenes, because there was some fire. And I think of that Tennessee game in particular. That team was completely bought in. And you got to see it in the Clemson matchup. You got to see it in the, unfortunately, the bowl game. But still, they played a hell of a football game there. So my question to Beamer is the cancer out? Is this same momentum that we saw there in Columbia going to continue? Because like you said, the schedule ramps up real quick at the start of the season. We can't afford for a sluggish start, and you've got some leadership back there. So what do you expect from the locker room moving forward? And how much did that have to do with that Florida loss?
Now the final team scheduled for Thursday, Shane, saved the best for last for you, the Tennessee Vols. And Josh Heupel, you know, we got full confidence that Josh Heupel, you know, his offense will always be good, because it always has been. A lot of new faces, new pieces all over that offense, though. So I think the critical factor to it all is the offensive line with a new quarterback, even though new is maybe a stretch, because Joe Milton started before for Tennessee, and he started the last game, the bowl game. So, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot of people got questions about Joe Milton, but my biggest question is the confidence in the offensive line with Darnell Wright off to the NFL. He may be a first-round pick. Jerome Carvin was arguably their second best lineman. He's off to the NFL. They got nice pieces. Cooper Mays is outstanding. Spraggins is a good offensive lineman, but they had to hit the portal for a couple linemen. How do they gel on that offensive line? I think that's critical to Tennessee's season. I think it's going to be how good can this offensive line be next season will determine how great Tennessee is.
And Mike, I just want to know one simple question, and he's going to have to keep it on the down low, and I will too. I'll keep a secret. Like, this is it, right? Tennessee's home, right? You know, Oklahoma, NFL, you know, this stuff has been floating around since Heupel's production there at Tennessee kicked off. And you're always a little bit leery because of another coach we mentioned earlier. We've been hurt here at Knoxville. So I would just like, between him and me, could he see himself retiring in Knoxville, Tennessee, with hopefully a couple of national championships, So that's if I'm just cold beer, me and him talking, I just want to know confidence level that he's going to stay. Like, is there a dream job that's going to pop open that I need to worry about? I need to know now, Mike. I need to brace myself.
How big of a weight off your shoulders was it when Tennessee gave him that big extension? Because he was near the bottom of SEC coaching salaries. Now he's I think he's, what is it, $9.5 million? Now he's in the upper echelon.
Yeah.
How much confidence does that give you that, hey, we're keeping the big hype happy down there?
I think that's huge, Mike, and it could come at a better time, because there was some jobs lingering around out there that I was really afraid of. I mentioned the Oklahoma. I mentioned Michigan was another one. The NFL jobs, that's the one that really scared me because, a lot of the coaches these days, especially these offensive-minded guys, don't want to deal with the recruiting side of things. But, this community absolutely loves Coach Hype. I think they realize he's going to be a hell of a coach. We love to see him stick around for a long time, and I'm glad he got paid. So if me and him just shooting the shit, I want to know confidence level though, or is there like one or two teams, just so that I prepare myself in case that position ever comes open,
Let me ask you this. I think I already know the answer, Shane, but obviously Nashville, that's where Vanderbilt's located.
Yeah.
Will more Vanderbilt fans show up to SEC Media Days, or will more Tennessee fans show up to SEC Media Days? What's your thought?
Honestly, probably neither fan base. Georgia's traveling well. Alabama travels well. I would imagine those guys. In fact, you think about teams like Kentucky now is a lot closer to SEC Media Days. Missouri, a lot closer. So I think we're going to get a hodgepodge of all types of fandom. But I'd love to see a huge showing for Tennessee, clearly. And if I'm picking between Vanderbilt and Tennessee hands down.
And I've got to give Kentucky fans credit, Shane. I know it's completely different, but, when they hold the SEC basketball tournament here in Nashville nearly every year, the city turns blue. I mean, they travel in waves, so they support their programs. But, hey, little bonus addition here, Shane. We got to throw these guys in there. They're SEC members now, Texas and Oklahoma. So thoughts on them real quick. I know they're not going to be at Media Days, but who knows? Maybe they send a jet down just to shoot the ship for a couple hours down here in Nashville. Steve Sarkisian, my question for him, and I think this is an important one, Shane. They got this quarterback, Quinn Ewers. He was supposed to be, the highest rated quarterback ever signed or whatever since Vince Young. He was okay last year, but not great. He even had one game, Shane, I saw he had 30 incompletions. I mean, that's got to be a Texas record or something. Is he the guy to lead Texas back? Or if he's not, should we just turn the keys over to Arch Manning? Because we got to get him up to speed for SEC play in a year. That's what I want to know from Steve Sarkisian.
I mean, obviously, that's going to be the hot question. Just let the kid play. You got one more year in the Big 12. Now, I know they'd probably like to win a conference championship. Who wouldn't? They want to go undefeated, go to college football playoffs. But, you definitely want to get geared up for the SEC. And I can't imagine any scenario where we don't see Manning the first season unless – it is a freaking successful year. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, they go 10 wins. They're looking at a Ewers turns out to be the guy for a little bit. He's still a stopgap, in my opinion, until Manning puts some weight on him and gets, SEC ready. But you definitely want to get him out there, I would imagine, and get him some playing time, because when you roll into this conference, man, every Saturday is going to be a tough-fought football game.
Yeah. And then for Oklahoma, Brent Venables, man, he was supposed to be a defensive guru. He was down there at Clemson. They were world beaters in the weak ACC. Now he's at Oklahoma. They had the 99th best scoring defense in the country. Oh, my God. That ain't going to cut it, brother, in the SEC. And that was in the Big 12. So what's his confidence level that the defense can get up to speed I mean, I get it, new coach, all that. They had a lot of transfers, but that is just purely inexcusable to be that poor at a program like Oklahoma, where they probably got better talent than everybody in that league aside from Texas. So,
Yeah.
man, we got to see Oklahoma make big strides on the defensive side of the ball. What's his confidence level that we can get that done next year?
Yeah, and just beefing up the team altogether. It's always tough year one. You're working through. You didn't get a full recruiting class, that sort of thing. I get that. Year two, a little bit different, but ultimately you're judged in year three, and you're going to be rolling into the SEC, and you're going to have to have some depth. This man knows. Being at Clemson, he played plenty of SEC programs. He's played a lot of top 10 programs, and he knows that he's going to have to build, especially up front, some big uglies when it comes over here to this conference. So, what is his game plan? Does it change a little bit? Because I think there's always been like a Big 12 route, and then now there's this SEC route. Does that dictate some of his recruiting side? And is there something that he's trying to build up before he gets over here?
Well, Shane, we've ran through every coach conceivable question we can here in middle February to ask these guys in July. I mean, man, we're dying for some SEC football. That just gives you an indication. But hey, happy, what is it, President's Day? Is that what the holiday is to everybody?
I don't know, Mike. It seems like we got a holiday every weekend. We just had Valentine's. Now we got the presidents. I don't know. What's next? What is this week? So it's is it February? Yeah, I think we've got St. Patrick's. It's coming up. So, yeah, any excuse to take a day off. It sounds like I'm making the calendar.
But we wanted to get you out there because a lot of people do got to work on these holidays.
Yeah.
So we're giving you something. And if not, maybe you got the day off and you're listening to this the next day. But, hey, man, that's all I got on this episode. You got anything else before we hop off the line?
No, brother, I'm excited. Like you said, when this came out and the lineups, I was just, now that we've got one under our belt, kind of know what we're going into, and it's going to make for a hell of an event, man. I know it's going to be absolutely loaded. I hope like I said, I hope there's plenty of fans going to be there. It's going to be really, really cool setup. Now there is, they do the coaches meeting in Florida. Do you know when that is right offhand?
I don't, but I believe it's in, I want to say late. No, I think it's early May. I think it's like the first week of May.
Okay. Yeah. I felt like it was coming up sooner, but I'm not familiar. But that would be like our first little dose there. And then that usually leads into those questions that we ask on media days. So, but man, the ball's rolling, man. The ball is absolutely rolling. I'm desperate for any sports. I watched NASCAR for the first time in like 2 years today, It's like, why the hell not? No football on. Might as well watch the Daytona, which was a great race. But I saw that they got all these other leagues cranking up now. XFL, I think that's a thing again. So, I don't know. Did they still? Is that what it is? I mean, maybe it makes it. I don't know. So I guess that will be that'll be helping a little scratch, But no, it's good to have some real content coming out, and we're gonna have more. We're gonna have absolutely more. So Mike's gonna have some more guests on. I'm gonna be on more often as well. So just be sure to tune in. Turn those notifications on, especially YouTube. So if you want to see us good-looking bastards, you could just jump on there, subscribe. That would help out a lot. Be kind in the comments. I'm very emotional. But other than that, that's all I got, Mike.
Well, I certainly do appreciate you, Shane. I appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to check us out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.